Hey, welcome to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. Tonight we're doing something different. This is a special broadcast. For the first time ever, we're providing brand new original content that's never been played on a station before. And we're providing this to Para X Radio, 7 p.m. Saturday night. This evening, today is the 25th. And then also, too, this will be available on Late Night in the Midlands on Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Now, what I did was I had done a show previously with William-Ramsey, who's the author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception, and the West-Memphis-Three Murders. Because at the time, it was a couple months back, and at the time William-Ramsey came up with a smoking gun documentation that Damien-Echols of the West-Memphis-Three was a member of the OTO and had an OTO library, which is the Aleister Crowley group. They had a library named after him, and that while he was in prison, supposedly when he was claiming to be a Buddhist and had turned his back on all that kind of activity, that he was a member of the OTO prison ministry. So I did a show on that with William-Ramsey a few months back, but it has not played on any station. It's been available on my YouTube and Spreaker, but nowhere else. So that's part one. Then just this week, I did a show. Finally, I got a hold of dr-dale-griffis. Anybody who's watched the documentary reality TV movies Paradise Lost about this case of the West-Memphis-Three saw how they took Dr. Dale-Griffis and they tried to slander him and trash his credibility. So Dr. Griffis has only done like one interview in the past 20 years. He agreed to come on my show. We recorded about 90 minutes, which is available on oppermanreport.com in the member section. Then the next day or the day after, he contacted me. He says, Ed, there's a couple more things I want to talk about. Can I come back on the show? So we recorded that, and it's available to you now tonight. Neither of these shows have ever played on any station ever before. So this is brand new content. And this is something I'm hoping to be able to do in the future for stations like Para X and Late Night in the Midlands. These really, really good stations with a lot of listeners to provide them brand new content instead of always just repeats of the show. So first we have William-Ramsey, author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception, and the West-Memphis-Three Murders. And then we have Dr. Dale-Griffis. Dr. Dale-Griffis is a 26-year veteran, police veteran, retired a captain. He worked for the DA's office. He was a criminal justice professor at a college. He taught a college-level course of criminal justice. He was participated in a congressional investigation where he did the Washington Press Corps press conference down there in Washington, D.C. at the National Press Club. A whole bunch of other things, too, that I'm leaving out about Dr. Griffis doing. Plus, this week I've been talking to a lot of people who all endorse Dr. Griffis, including I did a show with Tim Tate, who was the documentary filmmaker behind the movie Conspiracy of Silence. That's about the Franklin cover-up and Boys Town scandal. And that he did this documentary about 20 years ago. And it was silenced. It was supposed to go up on the Discovery Channel, and it was silenced the night before it went up. So I just did an interview with him this week as well, and that's available in the members section at oppermanreport.com. So, guys, enjoy the show. I'm going to be playing two shows in a row. First one is William-Ramsey, and then you'll hear me say goodbye and stuff like that because that show is over. But then it's going to start up another show with Dr. Dale-Griffis, and it's going to sound just like a regular show. Starts with the music and the intro, like they're two shows, but they're edited together. Never before played anywhere in the media.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by Audible.com. You go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You sign up for free, you get yourself a free audiobook, and it helps to support the show. This is one of our special broadcasts that will be available in our archives on OppermanReport.com. It'll be available on iHeart.com. It'll be available on Spreaker.com, YouTube, and then we're going to put it into rotation on all the stations that replay our normal Friday night show. It's going to go on Para X, which is CBS Radio, Saturday nights. Not tonight, maybe next week. It'll be on Penny Entertainment on Sunday mornings, Blog Talk Radio. It'll be on Late Night in the Midlands on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock. It'll be on High Point Radio, which is AM, FM, and over in, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania. And it'll also be on FPRN Radio Monday to Friday. This show could play throughout the whole week if it gets on FPRN. It's every day, Monday to Friday, 10 a.m. East Pacific time, 10 a.m. Okay. We're doing a quick show, like a kind of an emergency kind of broadcast. Maybe we should have one of those emergency broadcast alerts. One of those, But the thing is, because William Ramsey, who's a friend of the show, great guy, he's been on here 3 or 4 times at least. I'd love to have him more often. He's the author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West-Memphis-Three Murders. Now, he's uncovered some startling new information about Damien-Echols and his background, and something he's been denying for years, but now we got him dead cold. Before we get to our guest, I just want to point out a little bit of confusion going on out there. A lot of people who wanted to listen to tonight's show were concerned that it was going to be in the members-only section. We have this new members section for subscription where we do new shows and we have new content in that section. Now, a show like this, we're not going to have in the members section, okay? We're trying to get information out to you. It's important, okay? It's like an emergency broadcast, and we want to get to you breaking news. We had a situation with the Mumia Abu Jamal this week, and we wanted to get that information out to you urgently. Tomorrow night I'm doing a show with a local cop who had a fascinating story. He wrote a book about a local guy who was trying to track down this repeat offender here in Vegas. So there's a lot of free shows we're doing extra besides the Friday night show. And we're able to get these shows out to you. They get on the archives, they get in YouTube and Spreaker and iHeart, and they get out there. The shows we're doing in the member section are a whole different deal. These are extra shows we're doing. It's new content. This week I'm interviewing Heidi Fleiss. I'm also interviewing Scott Thorson, who was Liberace's boyfriend. He was also Michael Jackson's boyfriend, and he was also involved in the Wonderland murders. For the archive section, for the member section, I'm interviewing Freeway Rick Ross. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff. Now, I don't have the list in front of me right now, but we have a whole list of shows that we're doing in there. David Schurter's coming back. I'm doing a ton of shows about Ted Gunderson. I'm doing a whole series on Ted Gunderson. Everybody who ever knew Ted Gunderson or lived with Ted Gunderson or worked with Ted Gunderson, I'm interviewing all these people and we're getting it in there. So just to clarify the confusion, the member section is for those produced shows that I record during the afternoon that we're going to put in the member section. They're special shows. The Friday night show is free forever. That's always going to be free, and it's going to be replayed on all the stations. And public service shows like this, and Ramona Africa, and we just had another one recently. I can't remember. But like stuff like this will go on as we can and broadcast as we can news and updated information. But it's the membership, the support we get from the membership section, that can afford us the time and money to do this for you. So we're here tonight. William Ramsey has been doing some work, and he came up with some information that's just mind-blowing. William, are you there?
I am. Thanks for having me back, Ed.
Dude, man, I love you. I love you. I really do, man. I love talking to you off the air. I just love you so much. You have no idea. So tell us about your book and how you got involved in this whole craziness.
Well, my first book was Prophet of Evil, which went through and kind of detailed Aleister Crowley's life in the context of the 9/11 event. And so I had an interest in Aleister Crowley. I didn't really know much about him before I had written the book, I think 5 years now. So I was writing a second book, which I'm close to completing, which is Children of the Beast. People Aleister Crowley has influence. And I came across a clip online of the West-Memphis-Three trial, and it involved Aleister Crowley. There was a copy of Magic and Theory and Practice on the desk of the prosecutor, and the prosecutor was asking one of the main figure of the West-Memphis-Three, Damien-Echols, questions about Aleister Crowley. So that kind of piqued my interest. I knew that there was a dispute as to publicly about whether he was guilty or innocent. And so I really researched it myself, and I found that there was tons of occult influences in the case and on the individuals who were in the case, the West-Memphis-Three, and that led me to write a book about that, which is Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West-Memphis-Three Murders. And so that kind of got me involved, and I really took a really broad view of the case. I tried to read every book, see every video. I really tried to see all the perspectives of the variety of individuals involved, and my conclusion really was that occultism was heavily involved in the case, and that the West-Memphis-Three were justly found guilty of the crime.
Well, okay. No, yeah, definitely they were justly found guilty. They confessed several times over and over again. Forget it. That's the amount of admissions in this case is just remarkable.
True. Post-conviction as well, true.
Yeah, and they pled guilty.
Correct. And they pled guilty in 2011 using an Alford plea, which is still a guilty plea. So they wrote on a piece of paper, I am found guilty, and they pled guilty to first-degree murder.
Absolutely. Now, the thing is, there's an aspect to this case, though, okay, that involves so many people for so many years. I've been following this case from the start since like 96 on Usenet. I was following this case every single day, got involved with these nuts. But now the aspect of the occult involvement and the satanic worship involvement and the involvement of Aleister Crowley and the OTO has been in dispute and kind of downplayed, even by the people who think that who are aware that the three are guilty. Yes, that is very true. But what's the significance? Okay, who cares? Hey, so what if these guys are devil worshippers and they drink blood and, then they kill dogs and they hang up their skulls in their room, and they set fires and they do rituals? So what, William? So what?
Well, I think it has an incredible impact upon the people who are watching the case and just, how it's affected so many people. So many people have donated money and time and all these celebrities involved, but the occult element of it is really one of the most remarkable and repulsive aspects of the case. And I think that it shows that if these three are lying and got out of jail and they're still involved, which the evidence shows they're still involved in occultism, they're really a danger to, they're dangerous out on the street, in my opinion.
Okay, so let's get into this. What have you just uncovered in the past 24 hours or the past 2 days?
I got some information from a friend online that Damien-Echols had donated some of these books that he had collected over time in jail. He had donated them to an OTO chapter in Arkansas. He had taken these books, and they had actually made a specific library in that OTO chapter under his name. So it was called the Damien-Echols Library in the Sol Invictus Oasis, which is an OTO chapter. And so I wanted to find evidence of that. So I started researching, and under one of those OTO chapters, they basically said flat out that Damien-Echols identifies himself as a Thelemite, and he is registered with the OTO in a prison chapter. So he is definitely a member of Crowley's secret society, the OTO, and considers himself a Thelemite, which was never really ever publicly stated or verified until recently or last night.
Right. He's been claiming recently, at the time of his marriage and at the time when he first got out of prison, he was a Buddhist. And
correct. He was a Japanese Buddhist, I think in the Shinto tradition or something like that. That was his public statement. And when he married his wife, who, by the way, has not been seen for over 6 months, when he married her, it was a Buddhist ceremony.
The Shinto tradition?
The Renzai Shinto, I can't remember it exactly, but it's some Japanese Buddhist, subgroup of Buddhists.
Is that akin to being full of Shinto?
Yes. I think that a lot of people actually believed it because he had the external trappings of that type of religious, group. So they really believed it. But, in Crowley's system, all human knowledge can be, put together, and you can still be an occultist. So, Crowley himself was interested in Buddhism and all kinds of Eastern type style religions.
Okay, so let's get some details here. What is the OTO?
So the OTO it actually started in Germany. It's called the Ordo Templi Orientis. It is a it was a post-Mason Masonic kind of organization. They took Masons, but they had very they tried to accumulate as much occult knowledge as possible in Germany, and the head of the OTO visited Crowley in London and made him the head of the OTO of England. And this guy's name was Royce, and he had similar ideas as Crowley. They realized that rituals could be more effective using sexual techniques, and they both basically founded at the same time. In time, the German head died, and Crowley became head of the OTO in 1925 until his death in 1947. So he ruled over all the OTO all over the world kind of with an iron fist. And the main OTO chapter in the United States up until his death was the OTO chapter, the Agape Lodge, which was eventually headed by Jack Parsons in Pasadena.
Yeah, we were just discussing Jack Parsons last night, yeah. Now, okay, so now that's the OTO. Now, what is a Thelemite?
A Thelemite. So
Thelemite.
Basically, Crowley really believed in the power of the human will. And the Greek word for the will was thelema. So he had a abbey of Thelema, which was his abbey of the will, which is in Italy. And the term that was used for followers of Crowley around the world now is called Thelemites. That's another term for a believer in Crowley's system.
Okay, and you know, let me ask you a question. I'll take the devil's advocate, okay?
Go.
Oh, so what? Crowley, you know, what is so bad about Crowley? He influenced all these musicians and these rock stars, and they did backwards masking and all. Did Crowley ever kill anybody? Did he ever advocate killing anybody?
Crowley, you know, he had his book called Liber Oz, which is book 77, which advocated the total freedom of the individual, and anybody who got within those rights should be destroyed. So he had that, and I think that he was extremely nasty. The Book of the Law, which he received in 1904 in Egypt, basically advocated that, like, be at their necks, rip out their eyes. You know, this is the law and love of the world, is to destroy your enemies, basically, to paraphrase it. So I believe Crowley is extremely nasty, and I think people that he's influenced went on to do those kind of evil behaviors. And, you know, he believed in kind of these vicious rituals, which were anti-Christian. And I believe that his ideas influenced the events of 9/11. So, and that's kind of my general thesis of the Prophet of Evil book. So I do think Crowley was evil, and I believe that he thought he was the prophet of a new aeon, and he was also the prophet of Awas, this being or entity that he received the Book of the Law from. I do believe that Crowley, all Christians and all people should understand what Crowley believed and what his followers will act upon, the beliefs that he set out. So he just advocated such total freedom that there aren't really any kind of moral restraints, and that means unbridled sex, drug use, and whatever goes along with that. And a lot of his followers went mad. Some committed suicide. He punched one of his Scarlet Women, who he branded on the chest with the mark of the beast, like a literal brand, like you would brand an animal. He punched one in the face and broke her skull. So, you know, Crowley's effect upon the 20th century, I think, has been pretty vast and altogether, in many ways, negative.
Now, were there any other followers of Crowley who went on to commit murder or child sacrifice?
People have read Crowley and they've been influenced by Crowley. I don't know, if you want to get into child sacrifice, you can talk about West-Memphis-Three, one of the tie-ins. I don't know exactly what happened on the night of the murders on May 5th of 1993, but everything looks into a very occult ritual. 8-year-old kids is what Crowley advocated. Happened on a full moon. There was blue wax. There was the drowning in water, which is consistent with other witch-type rituals by the king of witches, not Gerald Gardner. There was another guy, Alexandrian witchcraft, who advocated this kind of sacrifice. So that's one example. Crowley did advocate child sacrifice in Liber 66. He basically alludes to it, that, the blood shall cover the altar as wine, and then the master shall appear. Basically, Satan shall appear. And that's all in veiled language back in, Crowley's kind of style of writing. But as far as his followers, there's people who have digested Crowley and kind of understand Crowley. So you have the Process Church, who's some of its main people, who also were associated with Scientology, but they also digested Crowley and tried to understand what he was up to. There's tie-ins of Crowley to Marilyn Manson, for example. So I have these pictures of guys like Marilyn Manson with Damien-Echols. Echols, for some reason, he has really ingratiated himself with a very famous people. So he's always hanging around. There's pictures of him with Ozzy Osbourne, Marilyn Manson, Johnny Depp. At least in this instance, I think that Crowley's impact upon his followers is altogether pretty negative.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about. It seems like a lot of these people they revere Echols, and they look up, they hero worship him. Well, you can see the admiration in their eyes when they're in his presence.
Yeah, I mean, I have a picture of him with Henry Rollins, and Rollins is just ecstatic. He's just so happy. It's incredible. He's not faking it at all. And there's an 1.5-hour interview Rollins did with Echols where it's just laudatory praise, and he's letting him lie about his prison record and everything without ever questioning, what he's saying. And I know people who've actually, I'm using Rollins as an example, but who've been in contact with Rollins, asking him questions about why he thinks they're innocent, and he really doesn't even come up with it. He just says that it's a kangaroo court with no evidence of it being a kangaroo court. And so these guys have these bullet points, but that's a whole nother issue. But yeah, there's a lot of famous people who really, there's something interesting about him where he's impressed them. I think that because he has such a deep understanding of the occult, somebody else who is in the occult can really appreciate his level of self-learned scholarship.
But and even he discusses this himself when he was sitting in prison, that he was doing these rituals and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, he said he would meditate for 5 to 7 hours a day, all kinds of stuff like that. He actually just he knows a lot. He tweets and puts a lot of information out, and he has a lot of followers, believe it or not. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. But he just put out commemorated the receipt of the Book of the Law on April 8th. He basically wrote "Happy first day of the feast of the first day of the writing of the Book of the Law." So he's right in track and in tune with being a hardcore Crowley follower.
Now, also too, his more recent activities, he's been involved in tarot card reading.
Yep.
Been involved in what's that called? Reiki healing.
Reiki, yeah, that's a Japanese kind of energy work where you kind of lay your hands on people and adjust them.
He had an art exhibit that involved human bones, human blood, human hair.
And that goes all the way back. He had, testimony from his mother that he kept he had bones from animals. And she actually, if you read it in my book, she's so strange about it. I let him I got it ready for school. I got his dog head clean and ready for school. She didn't have any objection to it. It was really weird, and it shows kind of what he's grown up with.
Yeah, she talks about hanging it from the clothesline in the backyard. Yeah.
So yeah, he's been involved in that. One of the more interesting things that has happened to him since his release is he actually had this magic on the mat. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I remember that yoga kind of thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, but he was involved with this woman named Sean Korn, who's really big in the yoga community. And they were doing this kind of yoga/magic thing together, and they had one in New York, and they were supposed to have one in Los Angeles. And I think that a lot of people warned that I wasn't involved in this, but there's a lot of people who know what's kind of going on with Echols, and they alerted YogaWorks, who was the corporate overhead of kind of what she was up to, and they canceled that post haste. Wisely canceled it, in my opinion. But that was really an interesting situation where he ingratiated himself with some, yoga bigwig.
Yeah, and there seems to be a network out there that's tuned into what he's tuned into, and they all support each other. But back,
this is true. Just to interject, there. He goes out on a lot of book tours. Apparently, he has just recently said he's going on one last book tour this summer, which a book I don't know about. But I have pictures of some of his book signings, and most of the people really think that he's innocent. They believe the myth of the entire court case and that he was just walking down the street wearing black and he got arrested and went through 18 years of hell just because he wore a Metallica shirt, which is nonsense. If you read the court cases at Callahan's 8k.com, I think it shows fairly well that he had a very fair share of constitutional due processes. But there's other people who come to those book signings who, in my opinion, I think they know exactly what he's up to. Yeah. And they're hardcore occultists. So he's being seen with, a lot of occultists, modern occultists, and other people like Genesis P. Orridge, who is from the Process Church. And, it's pretty disturbing.
Okay, now you mentioned earlier that the Process Church were followers of Crowley.
I think they were influenced by him, from what I've read. Both of the some of the heads who are still alive, is Genesis P. Orridge and another guy by the name of Timothy Wiley. Yeah. Is number 3 in the process. Both have stated, they learned from Crowley. So it's very common for these occultists to kind of use Crowley as a baseline.
Well, you got to remember that the process came out of Scientology, and Scientology. Hubbard was friends, with Crowley. Had paintings of Crowley in almost every room. I found out last night.
Who had paintings?
Hubbard.
I didn't know that. Oh, wow, that's interesting. So Lerman knew that.
Yeah,
it's fascinating. So you have Hubbard at Parsonage in Pasadena. I have to assume not only did Hubbard know Crowley, but I would assume that he was an OTO member. I think from some of his, what he had gleaned from that, he put into Scientology. This whole grades and these whole levels are very consistent with stuff that Crowley wrote. And he had come across the Book of the Law, Hubbard had, prior to being at that OTO encampment, the Agape Lodge. He had found a copy of the Book of the Law at the, I think it was at the National Library, actually, in Washington, D.C.
And very interesting. And also, too, we had discussed this, you and I, but Kinsey had also visited Crowley's...
Abbey of Thelema, that's correct.
Right, another one, and he
was really in the market to find Crowley's diaries. So I think that actually the Kinsey Institute has a very viable or important element of Crowley's history in his diaries.
Right, and I found out from Judith Reisman, who's a fascinating woman. I love this woman, who told me that Kenneth Anger, one of the founders of the Church of Satan, used to hang out in Kinsey's attic and make films up there.
Yeah, there is actually evidence. There's still video of him in bed in one of Kinsey's experiments, like coming in and out of bed, which I saw on a video. Gosh, I can't remember. It's one of the Chris Pinto's videos.
Well, not only that too, but also too that in the Kinsey Institute in the library, they have all the letters and correspondence between Kinsey and Anger. So it's revered, it's held in high esteem. My God, what is going on out there? Now, by the way, too, Judith Reisman said we can go then down there anytime we want and go through her whole library and look through all her stuff. Okay, you and me got to get a plane ticket when they get down there, man.
Right. We'll get a Kickstarter campaign going.
Get our thumbs out, man. Hitchhike down there because we have an invite. Okay, I thought of you immediately, when I got that invitation.
Well, I'm still tracking down pieces of Crowley all over the world. I've been to some of the holdings in Texas. I've been to some in UCLA. So I really, it was very important for me to kind of see the original documents because it really gives you a much better perspective than kind of other, what I consider to be biased biographies by people who are his admirers, which I'm not.
So now, sticking in the current time, again with Echols, you mentioned this this individual, Genesis P. Orridge,
right,
who was a member of the Process Church of the Final Judgment, which is a satanic cult that came out of Scientology, but was also a very, I think, has been connected through police reports. I've read police reports from the Immigration Naturalization Service, INS department, that connected the Process Church, the Son of Sam cult, that murdered those people in New York City and all that kind of stuff. I've seen it with my own eyes, police reports. Now, Genesis P. Orridge has a... Well, describe first Genesis P. Orridge
Well, he was an occultist who came out of England. He was, I think, always involved in the occult. He started something called the Psychic Group. I can't say I know too much, but something called the Psychic Group. He was in bands like Throbbing Gristle was the name of one of them. One is Coil. And he's had something like, he's had spiritual events, something called Coom transmissions. So he's kind of trying to channeling these spirits. He says he met Crowley after Crowley's death, which is very interesting. But he had to leave England kind of in a rush, and there were allegations that he was making snuff flicks.
Oh,
that
really?
they had videos of him killing people, and I know people who said the guy collects blood and kind of just all kinds of bodily fluids. Like, that's very consistent with kind of witchcraft stuff. But he fled England to go to none other than Timothy Leary's archivist, this guy named Horowitz. And so he stayed there, and he's kind of bounced around. I think he's in New York now, but he was once staying with...
Daniel Horowitz?
Pardon me?
Daniel Horowitz?
I think the guy's name is... I forgot his first name, but it's Horowitz. He's the he's the father of Winona Ryder.
Okay, right, okay.
So he stayed there, and then he went to... he started on this project where he was going to become an androgyne, or a pandrogyne, where he became, I don't know, a man and a woman with his wife.
Right.
And she has passed away, but he has become a he/she. And it's actually somewhat consistent with Crowley's writings, where he wrote about Satan being an androgyne, and Genesis Piord says it's a positive androgyne. That's how he refers to himself. So he's a very peculiar character, but he was in a movie actually with Echols called IRL. It's an independent film, and I have all my videos about the West-Memphis-Three. If people want to kind of go through my videos, they're all located on YouTube at Occult Investigations, all one word. So if you type that in, you can kind of go through and see all the information that I've collected about Echols and Crowley and some of his more modern followers.
Yeah, on the Opperman Report blog, blogspot.com, I have scans of these documents that William Ramsey just uncovered that confirms 100% that at least in 2007, Damien-Echols was a member of the OTO, and that that this chapter of the OTO had dedicated and named their library after him because he had donated all these books. And how do they describe him in glowing terms? Can you describe how they... Yeah,
I mean, they really just thought he was something real... We can't overstate our gratitude for his incredible generosity. So love to you, brother, and may justice see you home. So they really just felt like he was akin, and they actually referred to him as a brother. So, it's pretty clear. He says he has become a friend of our oasis. He has married a lovely and well-respected architect. So they really do kind of drool over him. It's pretty weird.
Now, it's kind of interesting because they had a trial with this guy, right? And they asked him about Crowley under oath on a stand. Now, what did he have to say back in those days?
So on the stand, what had happened is he had been... Echols knows a lot of the secret languages. He uses a lot of stuff in the Theban language, which is the witch alphabet. But after he'd been arrested, he was scribbling away on a piece of paper in a secret language with a code. And he wrote his own name, his son's name, and Aleister Crowley's name. And the prosecutor really wanted to know, how much he knew. And so they asked him questions, and he actually got caught basically trying to evade the fact that he had written something about Aleister Crowley. And you can see this video again on Occult Investigations. I have it kind of pieced out of, or taken out of the Paradise Lost first documentary. But it's an interesting insight on how the prosecution at the time really believed that he was involved in the occult. And I think it was a correct belief.
Oh, yes, I would agree with you there as well. But the thing is, now he kind of he played it down, or you might even say that he lied about it.
Yeah, I would say that he was definitely being evasive. I mean, he tried to evade the fact that he had written down Aleister Crowley, but he had said, I think on the stand, if I recollect, he said that, I think the prosecutor asked him, so Aleister Crowley believed in human sacrifice, is what he said. And then Echols responded with, yes, and he also believed he was a god, which is also true. Crowley believed that man was God. So that was a belief that he espoused. So he was correct on those questions and answers.
If my memory serves correct, the prosecutor asked him if he was a follower of Crowley, and he says, "Well, I've read his work."
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he said I've read all his works or something.
Right. Okay, listen, we're going to take a commercial break. Okay, if you get a chance, go to Opperman Report blog. I think if you type in the Opperman Report, it comes up right away. The Opperman Report blog, and you'll find a link to these scanned documents that William Ramsey uncovered. Incredible work he's done here. You'll also find some links to William Ramsey's books that you can find on air. I'm going to play some commercials, and we'll be right back in about 4 or 5 minutes. But, William, if we talk during the commercials, the audience will hear us, and they'll hear us talking about them. Okay, so we don't want them to hear us. So we'll be right back after this with more of William Ramsey, his shocking, startling evidence that he's pulled out here, that he's uncovered, that documents, without a doubt, that at least in 2007, the date of these documents, the OTO, the headquarters of the OTO there in Arkansas, declared that Damien-Echols was a member. They named a library after him. There can be no doubt that at least on that date, he was a member of that group, and he was, what is that called, a Thelmalite? We might have lost...
Thelamite, sorry, I had you muted.
Oh, that's right.
Thelamite, sorry about that.
Whatever it is, man. Okay, he was one of them, okay?
I think it's the Lemite, so it's the Lemite, Thelamite, the Lemite.
The Lemite. Okay, we'll be right back after these messages. And now a word from our sponsors. We are listener-sponsored, and we appreciate your donations. If you like the show, please visit OppermanReport.com and click on the donate button. Or you can donate directly through PayPal at OppermanReport@gmail.com. We have Mike Gray of InfinityHomePlans.com. He's the host of Parlay over at CJ Mars Radio, Thursday evenings, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you need custom home designs, stock plans, or 3D work, he's your one-stop shop for home design and drafting needs. Mike Gray at InfinityHomePlans.com. At InfinityHomePlans.com.
Alistair Crowley.
If you're looking for essential oils, stop by and check out Essentially Tammy on Facebook. She is Young Living Essential Oils Independent Distributor. Now, these are 100% therapeutic grade oils. They help support the body's natural functions. You can visit her website posted on Essentially Tammy to see the current deals, or email at JocoTammy, JoCaTami @yahoo.com, or call 352-239-8546. 352-239-8546. Hey, if you need a private investigator, go to my website, emailrevealer.com. We offer asset searches, locates, skip tracing, adoption investigations, online infidelity investigations. We can recover deleted text messages from a cell phone or trace an email to online dating websites to catch people cheating. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can call 800-572-9762. 800-572-9762 for emailrevealer.com, my PI website. Pacific West Bamboo. It's your premier source for construction and craft-grade bamboo poles. They're announcing their latest project with EcoHead Event Sanitation, making bamboo composting bathrooms and porta-potties. Their first display will be at the Lucidity Festival in Santa Ynez, California, April 11th to the 13th. Come by and say hi and see what you can build with bamboo. Contact them for any kind of event planning, display building. If you need construction grade or craft grade bamboo products, call Amanda at 503-839-8126, 503-839-8126, or visit PacificWestBamboo.com, their brand new website. We're also sponsored by the New World Mexican Women. This is a rural Mexican craft women's cooperative. They are traditional makers of fine handcrafted, authentic jewelry. They use beautiful stone mosaics and Pacific blue Abilene inlay. They have a wonderful book of love letters written to their men in the United States, begging them to return to their families in Mexico. But they've written a new book, and it's called, it's about a young girl that falls in love with a rodeo bull rider and runs off with him without telling her family. It's a beautiful love story called Azukina Part 1, Azukina to the Rodeo. You can find their books and jewelry by clicking on their banner ad at oppermanreport.com or by Googling New World Mexican Women. You can also promote your business or website right here and have your ad played all over the world 7 days a week by emailing oppermanreport@gmail.com or calling 800-572-9762. Okay, we are back with the Opperman Report. I am your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by Audible.com. You go to Audible trial/Opperman Report, get yourself a free audiobook. You sign up for free. It's all free. Just want to point out, too, we just played some commercials. I'm going to be re-recording those ads. So if anybody wants to sponsor the show and get your ad played on the show, this is a great time to do it, you know, and save me some time and work because good old essentially Tammy there has gone into a different kind of business now. She's no longer selling the essential oils. She did so great by once she got all this publicity on the Opperman Report, she was bought out by the Oil of Olay company, and they bought her for $1 million. Well, I don't know what happened with her business here, but she's no longer in business. But if you want to advertise, get a hold of me at oppermanreport@gmail.com. But we're here with William Ramsey. He's the author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West-Memphis-Three Murders. And he's uncovered some incredible information in the last 24 hours. All these years I've been dealing with these nuts, man, from Usenet back in 1996. And every time you mention about the drinking the blood and the Satanism, it's all, oh, yeah, he's a wolf man, too. Oh, yeah, he's a werewolf. And all these stupid jokes that they've been doing for years. But here we have it. Here we have the proof. The man's been donated. There's a library in his name. He's a member of the OTO, and he's a member of this group down there in Arkansas. They have glowing terms. They talk about how he's a brother and a member and all this kind of stuff. If any of Damien-Echols, his attorney or his representatives or his publicist or any of his or a legitimate army of a PR team over there wants to come on the show and explain this, hey, come on, I'll talk to you about this. Let's talk about it. Maybe it's a big mistake. Maybe it's a typo, and it wasn't Damien-Echols. It was Damien-Eckler. It was a different guy altogether. Okay, maybe the whole thing's a big confusion. But so if you want to come on, fine. I'll have you on, and you can explain this. But otherwise, Damien-Echols has been caught in a huge lie that's been going on for about 18 years, denying that he's been involved in the occult, denying he's involved in Satanism, denying he's a supporter of Crowley, denying he's a member of this group. And now we have the documents from the group themselves. Okay, I'm not saying this. William Ramsey's not saying this. The group themselves is saying he's a member and that they named his their library after him. So now, William, you had some recordings there that you were playing for me that demonstrates Echols on the stand?
Yes. I mean, I can play it again if you like.
Yeah, do it.
It goes about, if they ask about Crowley and everything, so let's just go forward here. It is, right. This is Prosecutor Brent Davis.
And he also had writings that indicated that children were the best type of human sacrifice, correct? But Aleister Crowley doesn't have any particular significance to you?
I know who he is. I've read a little bit about him, but I've never read anything by him.
Let me show you a copy of some documents. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
It was this paper I had on different alphabets, like translations where you could write things that nobody could read, and this was one of the forms.
Okay. Where did you have that at? When did you do that? Write those things out?
Sometime before I was arrested, I guess.
Are you sure that you hadn't done those since you were arrested while you've been staying in jail?
I don't know, I might have.
Well, what Whose names are written on that document?
Mine, Jason's, my son's. One says Aleister Crowley.
Wait. Who?
Aleister Crowley.
Now, this is a document that you read while you were waiting for the trial. Roll.
And you know what's oh, is that me?
No,
Okay.
that's me. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. Good. You know what's really interesting about that too, is that why would he feel the if he's so innocent? Why would he feel the need to lie about that? William Ramsey.
Yeah.
Have you studied the work of Aleister Crowley?
Yeah, I've studied most of it. I mean,
See that? Yeah. So you don't.
I think that was kind of what I was curious about when I found out his effect upon the 20th century and the people in the 20th century. I wanted to know what he had written, not from some biography, but from his original writings. So that's really what I did. And, reading what he actually wrote and compiled is a lot different than reading it from a biography.
And it's very interesting that you didn't feel the need to lie about that, did you?
No.
Yeah, see? Yeah, it's funny. When you're innocent, you don't need to lie.
Yeah, and I've got actually, if you go to my YouTube site at Cold Investigations, I actually have a video called The Lies of Damien-Echols. And you can just show him lying over and over to people who didn't know how to come back with his lies. They didn't know the actual facts. So he has been caught in so many lies. It's incredible.
Well, I also heard from another guy who did some work on, wrote a book that when he tried to contact his PR team, that it was very controlled. But like I said, if Damien-Echols or his PR team or anybody, his lawyers, want to contact us, we'll be happy to talk to them, and they can explain this, and then we'll be happy to talk to them.
I actually just posted something about his PR team. This guy named Lonnie Sori, who is really a well-paid guy from New York, is his PR guy, and he's written some pretty interesting things, admitting that his pressure, his involvement in the pressure that he put on the prosecutors in Arkansas had an effect, and I think that is pretty interesting that, pretty interesting that he would actually admit that he had an influence upon the court case.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah.
This is what Ellington said of Sori. He says he was a machine. He was constantly bringing up, asserting that you have to have DNA to find these guys guilty. And that's kind of like one of their talking points of why they're innocent, is there's no DNA. But, it's not really that necessary considering that they had tons of confessions. But
I know.
It just says, like, and Ellington said also, Lonnie Sori poisoned the jury pool. So you see a lot of people who don't look at this case don't know that there was a PR team involved in shaping the public opinion and the opinion of the legal professionals in Arkansas. And I think that it goes back to show, that most people can't believe that these guys West-Memphis-Three raised somewhere between $10 and $20 million for their defense. That is so much money. They bought the best of everything, the best PR, the best attorneys, the best manipulation. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes either, why these people changed opinions, why all this stuff happened. But it can be explained by the involvement of massive stacks of money.
Now, let me ask you this. Now, at the time when we heard Echols' voice there, when he was sitting on the stands, and he was denying being a follower of Aleister Crowley. Now, we know for an absolute fact right now that he lied about that because we have the documents from the group themselves.
Correct.
At the time, he was also involved in some other activity, like with the dogs. He had the dog skulls. He was involved in drinking blood.
Admitted, self-admitted. And you can see that on Cold Investigation, yeah.
At the time, he admitted to drinking blood. At the time, he admitted to having these dog skulls and a rat skull and I think a cat skull. So he had these animal skulls. There were other accusations about him stomping on Doberman pinchers and all kinds of stuff like that. Now, did the fire, setting the fires, did he admit to setting the fires, or was that proven? Or
I don't know if he ever admitted it, but other witnesses said he had set fires, and he actually had got in the center of a fire he made in somebody's garage. He burned down a garage and then said some kind of satanic prayer. But I don't know if that was ever verified in court, but that was definitely in a police statement.
So now, if we know for an absolute fact that he lied about being a follower of Crowley, and he's currently a follower of Crowley, and at the time he was drinking blood, wouldn't it seem to make logical sense that he would currently also be drinking blood?
Yeah, I would assume that he's doing the same things. You know, he had admitted in his Exhibit 500, which is the psychological record that his defense team got together to try to save him on appeal. He admits in there that he drinks blood from other people to gain power. So if he's still heavily involved in the occult, I assume that he is still engaging in all these practices that he used to do before he was arrested.
Right. That's important to remember. This Exhibit 500 was his mental evaluation because he had been institutionalized at a mental institution because his parents were afraid of him.
Correct. So he had actually been in 3 different mental institutions, one in Oregon and 2 stays in the ones in Arkansas. And the records are all there. It's called Exhibit 500 because there's 500 documents in the exhibits that his own defense team collected. And it's very telling about his personality. It has just so many third-party statements about his occultism, his blood drinking, his moods, and his mentality, and his aggressive ideations. It's pretty damning. I try to cover it thoroughly in Abomination, and it seems like everybody who's a supporter wants to hide that under the rug and not admit that it's real or anything.
Or that he was just a troubled teen. You know, he was a poor... And I actually read one time, I just wanted to put my arms around him and hug him. You know? Because he was just a poor, troubled teen who was going through some teenage angst, you know.
I think that the evidence shows, the record shows that these guys had all, Jesse Miskelly, Jason Baldwin, and him had all been under police, and some kind of police involvement prior to the murders. Jesse had been, I think he had punched somebody. Baldwin, it was a shoplifter. And Echols ran away with a girl, and he was under probation. So, you know, these guys were, I think the record shows very clearly that they were troubled kids from a very unstable personal backgrounds.
Now, also, too, there was a police report where Dominique Tier, his girlfriend at the time, also claimed that she drank blood, and her mother drank blood, and they all drank blood, and there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So, you know, it shows to me that there was a lot of occult activity going on in that West Memphis environment, that a lot of people were involved in these, you know, cult ritual activities.
I would say so, but and the only thing that these supporters, these fans of these 3 confessed, convicted child killers can come up with is that, oh well, this one's lying, that one's lying, they were all lying. Every single person in that town lied. Yeah,
it's incredible. And when you go back, I looked at these things at first blush, but then I went into the court records that are available at Callahan8k.com. And it just shows so many people from so many different paths of life, gave their input to police and talked about it. I have the police statement of Alvis Clem Bly, who was involved with these guys. He has no interest in really damning them, and he told the whole story. And you can listen to it on Cold Investigations on YouTube. You can hear the statement of the confessions of Jesse Misskelley after he was, after he was convicted. There's one other ones. I think it's Chris Luttrell.
Well, let's stop for a second. Let's stop at Jesse Misskelley. Because now one thing is this whole myth about how, they were just odd kids wearing black and listen to Metallica, and they stuck out in this, because this town was like Mayberry, RFD. It was this little tiny Southern Bible Belt. And when they said that to Jesse Misskelley's dad, Jesse Misskelley Sr., he says, "What are you talking about? All those kids look like that. They all dressed like that." So it wasn't 3 kids who stood out. Every kid in that town looked just like every kid in my town in 19, whatever that was.
Right.
Yeah, we all did. Okay.
I mean, it's just something that they use to deflect somebody from looking at it in greater detail, I think.
But William,
and it's been effective. I mean,
poor Jesse Misskelley. He has a mental. Has an IQ of what is it 4?
Yeah, it keeps going down.
It's getting lower, yeah.
70, then it's 62.
I think it's negative. It's going to be negative in a couple of years. But
they tested him. The documents are online, and it's pretty clear that the police tested him, and he had an IQ of 88. So he's not the brightest bulb, but he's not dumb. And you can listen to his confessions, and they're pretty clear. And they verify post conviction what he said pre-conviction. It's all fairly similar. And, people just created this myth, an effective myth, just saying that they were coerced and they're nonsense. But they don't even try to acknowledge the fact that he confessed post conviction.
Oh, many times, yeah. Oh, boy.
I mean, it's just an amazing case, too, because so many people just ignored it. Mara Levitt was the journalist of record in this case, and she had actually talked to Echols about his interest in the Encyclopedia of Witchcraft, and but she never really included a lot of that stuff in her so-called seminal book Devil's Knot. It kind of like the title references the devil, but she never really covered it for some reason. And it's the same thing with a lot of the Paradise Lost movies. I mean, they addressed it in the first one, but in the second and third, they really made it vague, and they really gave the convicts place to kind of wiggle out of the damning conviction of the first case. But it's really amazing how many people of note reference the case, but just didn't really seem to core in on or hone in on the core occultism that was involved.
Now, you talk about the movie's Devil's Knot. It's interesting that in that movie that just came out with Reese Witherspoon, right?
Colin Firth, like huge names, A-listers.
Yeah. Now, in that movie, they kind of point the finger at a friend of mine, Terry Hobbs, who was I've talked to this man off the air, I've talked to him on the air, I've spent hours talking to this guy, chatting back and forth on Facebook, and they point the finger at him, right?
Right.
But in the book, did they point the finger at Terry Hobbs in the book, or were they pointing it at someone else?
They weren't. In the Devil's Knot, they definitely were not pointing at Hobbs. The real suspect, after 1996, was one of the other stepfathers. It was Byers,
right.
John Byers. So that was it. And at some point, they just switched it. Once they got a really credible team of lawyers and PR people, it became Terry Hobbs.
But it's kind of interesting that here you have a book that's pointing toward Byers. Well, I don't believe had anything to do with this either. It's ridiculous. But because of the popular opinion now is to crucify and attack Terry Hobbs, that they changed the movie.
That's amazing. It's incredible.
It is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, in Paradise Lost 2, you have, and you can see this on Occult Investigations, you have both Echols and Baldwin saying with 100% certainty that John Mark Byers did it.
Yeah.
So they've changed their perp, and that should tell you everything you need to know, almost everything you need to know about that case. If the guilty are blaming 2 different people, you can kind of, that should give people with some critical skills enough to know that something's very wrong. And the whole Hobbs thing is really, it's not plausible at all. You have to believe, well, first it was Hobbs, and then it was Hobbs and his friend and 2 other kids. Have you heard the 4 perp story with Hobbs?
Never heard the 4 perp.
So supposedly 4 of them were together. But, the thing about Hobbs is that you have to assume that Hobbs was, at the murders, was able to get in the water, get muddy, get sweaty, and walk around and with other 20 other people who were looking for the children that evening, convince them all that he wasn't involved, and then go home and sleep with the mother of one of the dead children for 10 years, and she never let on for that whole 10 years. You know, it's just not plausible. It's not believable.
Yeah, and some of these Hobbes theories are so incredibly ridiculous. Something about tunnels, that the kids were fascinated with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so they went down into sewers. You know, just the insanity by these.
The four people with Hobbes' story is actually they actually said they were having, one of the theories is they were having homosexual relations in the forest, and the three boys that happened upon them, and that's why they bound and drowned them. So that's just a total joke too.
Yeah, it's just so bizarre, and you know, and you look at this stuff and you think, well, okay, well, back in 96, 97, you know, they didn't have these TV shows like, you know, the next 48 hours where you can watch people get, you know, police investigate a case. You can watch this stuff and you can see what a police interrogation looks like, and you can see, if you watch that show, the next 48 hours, you know, you can see that almost every single defendant who gets, and the witnesses too, they got IQs way lower than Jesse Miskelly. You know, they make Jesse Miskelly look like a bright kid. You know, so you know, and you can see now. There's no excuse today. You can see what confessions look like. You can see what police investigations look like. You know, but they come up with these bizarre theories that convoluted, that have to twist everything around 180 degrees in order to come up with any other possible suspect. Then could be then the three guys who have admitted to several people in their life what they've done.
Admitted, who were seen in there at the night of the murders, who alibis they didn't have. Baldwin doesn't have an alibi. In court, he couldn't come up with an alibi.
Every polygraph would have to be inaccurate. Every polygraph would have to be 180 degrees in reverse. You know what I mean?
Well, Echols took a polygraph too, and he failed his polygraph and then immediately lawyered up. Like on the record, he says, let me talk to, he says after he failed the polygraph, he says to the police, let me talk to my mom and then I'll tell you everything.
Right.
So he says that. He's about to convince, they ask him a question, what are you afraid of? He says, I'm afraid of the electric chair. Right after his polygraph, and this is in the book, he goes and talks to his mom and then clams up. So why did he have to talk to his mom? But, you know, it's just, and then they lawyered up. Yeah. Not only did they clam up, he got a lawyer immediately, like somebody who really had to defend himself, you know? So it's all those facts are in there, and they're all things that the supporters fail miserably at recognizing. It's amazing.
Yeah, the book is Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West-Memphis-Three Murders. Our guest today is William Ramsey. He's the author of that book. He just uncovered some documents, which is, in my opinion, the smoking gun as far as the Satanism and the occult activity with these characters, these confessed murderers, these confessed killers who pled guilty. Okay, and anybody from going forward, if you're going to come out and say, "Well, Crowley's okay," you know, okay, well now he's okay. We admit it. He's a follower of Crowley, but still he's okay. You know, so that's where we are now. With this story, that's where we get into.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think that is a really very important piece of the entire puzzle. It fits so many other elements of the case together, and it shows that. I mean, it begs other questions too. Like, what if you are friends with a secret society? What other elements of the case are these secret societies involved in? You know, intimidation. Are you paying people off? Are you telling false stories? I don't know, but it kind of. Sheds light on to, you know, there's clearly some other things going on in this case that don't happen in other criminal cases. This is a very unique case in so many ways.
Well, okay, we did an hour. Do you have anything else you want to get out there?
You know, I'm just working on finishing up on my next book, so I'll have that hopefully done. Like, I'm at page 400. I said when I hit 400, I'm going to start editing. So I'm at that point, so hopefully I'll have it out by the end of the month. So it's called, title is Children of the Beast, and it's the people that, you know, Crowley has influenced, people that we've talked about tonight, whether it's Kenneth Anger, Kinsey, but also Leary. You know, Timothy Leary was a big proponent of Crowley's ideas, Jimmy Page. So I'm going to be covering all those people in detail, Hubbard as well, I think in ways that haven't really been reported. So I think people find it interesting.
Well, you know what I found out too recently was that Timothy Leary was a member of the Finders.
Really?
Oh, yeah, man.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? Did you know that he was a member of the Illuminates of Thanateros?
No, I don't know who that group is.
Yeah, that was kind of like a follow-on by, the guy's name is Carroll, Carroll, who wrote a book called Chaos Magic. So it's kind of like a little Illuminati group. My understanding is there were people who didn't want to join up with the OTO, so they kind of had a more loose, less hierarchical system. But yeah, he's an admitted member of that. So if he's a member of the Finders, that's creepy too. Wow.
No, it admitted. He admitted it.
The Finders are really deep. I mean, so he probably had associations with all kinds of secret societies.
And you got to remember too, with Larry, the guy was out on bail his entire public career. The guy always had a case pending. There's no way on earth this guy was not some informant, operative, asset.
Well, his wife is a known informant, so I mean,
right.
Like his third wife, I forgot what her name is. But yeah, I mean, it's his whole life. I mean, he started off at Harvard, and he had a very important meeting with Aldous Huxley, where I have that discussion in my book where they're talking about what they should do with LSD, And Huxley thought it should, like a typical elitist, he thought it should be, kept within a select group of educational people and so forth, educated people. And Larry was like, I'm going to be the Pied Piper of it. So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, I got a feeling that Larry was an asset from the very start, and the whole thing was an operation. Do you read Dave McGowan's book?
Weird Scenes in the Laurel Canyon one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you make?
I think it's legit.
Yeah.
I think most of that stuff's good. I actually have a signed copy, believe it or not.
Ah, very nice. Okay.
So I went to his book signing. But yeah, it's a good book. I mean, I think I would definitely recommend any book by him.
Yeah. Definitely great research. Now he did it. We all did a show together. What am I talking about? Okay, we were on the air together. Okay. Now, what about where can people find you and your videos, man? People have to really realize that William Ramsey's videos on the West-Memphis-Three, I think, are stellar and top notch. So, where can we find your videos, your website?
So the videos are all Occult Investigations on YouTube. So you go to YouTube, look at Occult Investigations. I have some videos about other people as well, but you can go through all. I challenge anybody to look at all my videos and say that they're innocent.
Yeah.
Looking at the facts, because I think that the facts show that they are the proper perps. And all my books are available on Amazon and Kindle as we speak.
Yeah, and I got the links to your books on my blog, the Opperman Report blog. Links to these scanned documents, which is incredible work, man. William, I take my hat off to you.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
That was great work, my friend. Okay,
Thanks.
so I guess this will be the end of the show.
All right, man. Let's keep in touch. When I finish my book, I'll let you know.
Thank you. You got an open invitation, man. Anytime
Awesome.
you come right back.
Nice talking to you again. Always good to be on your show.
Thank you, brother.
All right, man.
Good night.
Good luck. Cheers.
Okay, that was William Ramsey, the author of Abomination, Devil Worship, and Deception in the West-Memphis-Three Murders. Okay? And he's uncovered these documents, which I think are the smoking gun in this case. And no one can, at this point forward, ever claim that Echols did not lie on the stand. They can never claim that he had no occult involvement. They can never claim that he was not a follower. The guy's a member of this group. They named a library after him. Now, if you are a representative, you're Damien-Echols. You want to call me up? You're Jason Baldwin, Jesse Muskelly. You want to call up? Jesse, you want to call up and confess again? You can call me up. I'll put you on a show. You can confess live on the air for like the 8th or 9th time. You're welcome to come on. Your lawyers, your representatives, your bloggers, your whatever you got, man, bring them to me. Now, that's not an invitation. By the way, too, I get a lot of oh my God, I got so much crazy hate mail from this bunch where they say, well, I'm a fan of Damien-Echols. I'm one of his groupies. I'm a follower of these killers, and I want to come on your show and defend them. This isn't a forum for fans or groupies or anybody who is an advocate for child killers, confessed child killers. This isn't the place for you. There's fanny boy groups where you can go join on Facebook and blogs and on WMG.org, whatever that crap is. You can go to all those places there and dwell in their Satanism and their child murdering and stuff like that and have fun there, okay? This is not your forum. This is a forum for bringing the truth and facts. And just like we did tonight, we have documented evidence that Damien-Echols was a member of the OTO. They named the library after him. That's the fact, okay? So it's not a place for fanboys and groupies to come on here and say how much you love your friends and you worship your heroes there. That this isn't for that, okay? So tomorrow we have a great show coming up. We have a police officer named, former police officer named Bradley Nickel. He's a local Las Vegas Metro Police detective, and he's written this book about a repeat offender here. We hunted this guy down for years. The guy was one of the most prolific criminals here in Vegas. And my guest is, we're going to be talking about this tomorrow night, right around the same time. These shows we're doing now are kind of loosey-goosey. We go on whenever we want. We can go live on Spreaker. They're played on iHeartRadio. It'll go up on YouTube in a couple of seconds after we broadcast. And then we put them in rotation on all the stations that carry our replays. Like Para X Radio, which is coming on in a little while. It's coming on at 7 o'clock. You can hear me tonight on Para X Radio, CBS Radio. Late Night in the Midlands on Tuesday. That's another big station. Talk Superstation and PSN, two big stations on Friday nights. Also, there's a High Point Radio in New Jersey over there. So that's where you can hear all the replays of these kind of shows we're doing for you, these kind of public service shows we're doing. When we have Ramona Africa on, when we have William Ramsey on to discuss the West-Memphis-Three murderers. And then we have the Friday night show, which is completely free. Every week we do about 3 hours Friday night. That's all covered all over the world. That's all on Awake Radio US, Awake Radio UK, Australia, Scotland. Man, forget it. We get so much email and support from those countries in Europe. But then we have the membership section too. And it's the membership section that's supporting all of this, which is special content. And that's how we can afford to do these kind of shows with William Ramsey. It's because people sign up to be members. All right? And it's super cheap to sign up to. You go to oppermanreport.com. You sign up to be a member. You get all this exclusive content. Okay? And who we have coming up this week with the exclusive content is Heidi Fleiss, Scott Thorson, who was Liberace's the victim, I believe. He was Michael Jackson's lover, and he was involved in the Wonderland murders. He was a witness for the Wonderland murders there in L.A. with John Holmes and all that kind of stuff on Wonderland Avenue. David Schurter's coming back on with his sister. We have we're going to do a bunch of shows about Ted Gunderson. I'm interviewing a ton of people about Ted Gunderson. Here we go. Yeah, I got my list. Okay, here we go. Freeway Ricky Ross. I'm going to be working on a produced... Captain Crunch, the phone freak. John Draper, who's a really cool guy. This is the guy who invented the way how to get free phone calls back in the 70s, and he knows how to computer hack and all kind of stuff. Fascinating guy. I'm going to have my friend Reverend Ralph Knight, who's the founder of Gospel Tent Ministries. He's a really cool guy. Oh, wait till you hear this, man. We're putting together a show. Should be ready by Tuesday or Wednesday, which is the Why I Quit Revolution Radio, okay? And we're going to be playing the owner of the station. After I did this interview with Daniel Sheehan, who was he worked for Jimmy Carter and he worked for Kissinger. This guy, he argued before the Supreme Court about 20 times. So he's involved with the Silkwood case, and oh my God, so many the Iran-Contra. This guy was involved in anything. So and we're helping him out too behind the scenes on some different stuff. But he comes on the show, and we're on with him for 2 hours. And the owner of the station comes on after me. He gets drunk, and he comes on the station. He starts cursing and all this kind of stuff. So we have a tape of that. It's insanity. You wouldn't believe it. And then we have. I haven't heard it yet. Okay, but I heard about it. So a week later, I issue a statement. We quit the station. Oh my God, what are we dealing with here? And we quit the station. And so we're going to be playing his drunken meltdown. We're calling it, and then we're going to play my response. And then I'm going to listen to this thing for the first time ever, and then I'm going to give you a live response on the air, and that'll be in the members section as well. We have Neil Sanders, who has written his fascinating book about mind control. Freeway Ricky Ross, Dennis Hoff from the Bunny Ranch we're going to have come on, Captain Crunch, and we're going to try and do another a West Memphis 3 show that's on a different level that is going to really surprise you because I can't really talk about it because there's so many stalkers in that area with that bunch. It's really hard to get the information out there. So tomorrow night is going to be this cop, Bradley Nickel, really cool guy about his book, and we'll be doing that. And then this week I'm going to be interviewing Heidi Fleiss and Scott Thorson from prison. And then the big show coming up Friday night will be the Ganja Godfather, who is a marijuana dealer in New York City who works with the Genovese crime family. And he's still, we have not him personally, but we have the author. And from what I understand, he's still doing this. I don't know what's going on, how he's able to talk about this or what, but we'll find out Friday night. After that, we have a show coming up about Marilyn Monroe, the murder of Marilyn Monroe. We have another show coming up, again, to follow up on the Princess Di murder with Dodi Al-Fayed. Dodi Fayed's father, Muhammad Al-Fayed. We have him coming up, and his lawyer, who's this fascinating guy that was a lawyer for the IRA and stuff like that. He's a socialist, and we support his work. So we're working on a ton of stuff, too. I have another show coming up, too, with one of the bodyguards for Adnan Khashoggi. So we got a lot of stuff. We're going to be doing some shows, too, about another Paul is Dead show about Paul McCartney and the theory that Paul died. So a lot of stuff we have coming forward. And I can't thank you guys enough for going to OppermanReport.com members section and signing up for the membership, because not only can we produce those shows for the member section, but we can do shows like this that are important. You know, when we have a guy come up like a William-Ramsey and does incredible work like this and puts it out for you. So that's about it for tonight. And I'll see you tomorrow night. You know what I'll do? I'll do the Bradley Nickel show for you live, too. But that'll be up on YouTube and iHeart and Spreaker and all that kind of stuff you can find. And it'll go into rotation. So good night, my friends. See you tomorrow. Thank you all. And be well. Okay, I'm back. This is July 25th. This is Ed Opperman with the Opperman Report. We are live on tape. This is a special broadcast that I'm doing. It's going to be available tonight on Para X Radio, and then again on Tuesday on Late Night in the Midlands at 4 p.m. And we just had William Ramsey on the show talking about his discovery about Echols' involvement with the OTO. I think we have that well documented and well established now. No one could ever claim that Echols turned his back on the OTO and turned his back on Crowley and all that kind of activity. Now we're going to have, in our second part, this is an interview that I recorded this week with dr-dale-griffis. Dr. Dale-Griffis was the occult expert who testified at the West-Memphis-Three trial. He was slandered and defamed in that documentary, the real reality TV show, Paradise Lost. And he hasn't been in the press. He hasn't been in the public eye too much in the past 20 years or so. He came on my show. We recorded about 90 minutes for the members section in OppermanReport.com. You can go there tonight after the show, and you can purchase that. You can become a member. You can download the videos one by one if you want. And he came on my show. We did 90 minutes. And then he called me back a couple of days later, and he says, Ed, there's a couple of more things I want to talk to you about. So we went back and we recorded this show, which is coming up next. And now this week, I have a couple more West Memphis 3 shows coming up. I'm doing one. It's about Exhibit 500. This is Damien-Echols' psychological exam, his psych evaluation. that the defense put on in his murder trial after he was convicted, trying to get him off the death penalty, to show how crazy he was and he wasn't responsible for his actions. He was committed by his own parents. They described violence, blood drinking, delusions, wild stuff in this Exhibit 500 that you will not believe. I have 2 forensic psychologists coming on the show who have testified in court. These are professionals. They're going to examine this exhibit, Exhibit 500, Damien-Echols psychological evaluation, and they're going to discuss it. Okay, we have that coming up this week. That'll be going up in the members section, but we'll probably do something like this as well, where we'll put it on the stations live. Then I have another show coming up where I have 2 forensic odontologists, which are forensic dentists. These are real professionals who have testified in court as far as bite mark impressions and these kind of things. And they're going to be discussing there's some stuff, again, from the reality TV show Paradise Lost, where first they tried to claim that these marks on one of the victims was bite marks that matched Mark Byers, one of the step-parents of one of the victims. Now they're trying to claim that they match a different parent of one of the victims, a step-parent. So point at anybody except the guys who confessed, who pled guilty, who failed polygraphs, who then made admissions and were convicted by juries. Point the finger at anybody at all costs. So they're going to be, these 2 forensic odontologists, they're going to be discussing a YouTube video that's been put out there that's very comical, and it tries to point to it's just hysterical. And the character who made it tries to claim that this is some kind of a evidentiary value to it. And so I was talking to these 2 experts, and we were kind of chuckling over that this week. And we're going to be doing a show, hopefully, on that this week as well. Then I have 2 more shows in the future coming up on West Memphis-Three. We're chipping away at everything. Every kind of lie and delusion and the gullibility, the naivete of the supporters of these 3 confessed killers, one by one. So now our next guest, the second part of the show, is Dr. Dale-Griffis.
It's the Opperman Report. Join digital forensic investigator and PI Ed Opperman for an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome to the Opperman Report. I am your host, private investigator Ed Opperman, and this show is brought to you by Audible.com. Go to audibletrial.com/Opperman Report. You can sign up for free and get yourself a free audiobook. Now, just a couple of days ago, we did a pretty groundbreaking interview with Dr. Dale-Griffis, who was a 23-year police veteran, retired a captain. After that, consulted with the FBI on cases all over the country. And then he went to work. He was part of a congressional hearing where he gave a press conference at the National Press Club right after a congressional hearing in Congress. All kinds of stuff. And I had arranged this interview with Dale-Griffis. We've been going back and forth trying to schedule it for a long time. And just by this really bizarre coincidence, right before I did the interview with Dale-Griffis, I was in contact with Tim Tate, who's a documentary filmmaker from the UK. All these great awards. He did the film Conspiracy of Silence. He did a film about the Kinsey cover-up. And a fascinating man. And it just so happened, I was watching one of his documentaries, and who's in there is Dale-Griffis. Then I'm talking to Dale, and he's mentioning Maury Terry. Maury Terry, the author of Ultimate Evil, who worked with the DA's office, Santucci in Queens, to reopen the Son of Sam investigation, and then whose investigation went on to get convictions in the murder of Roy Radin. And then he consulted on the O.J. Simpson trial. Turns out that he's friends with Dale-Griffis. It's like such a small world. Then we have a mutual friend, Pastor Russ Dizdar, who was a former police chaplain and now has this ministry, international, really, does these kind of investigations, these kind of lectures as well, instructs the police on these kind of investigations. And then on top of that, just not even Monday, it's my life is combined with Dale Griffis. All of a sudden, I'm talking to Doug Millar. Doug Millar worked with the former FBI agent in charge of the whole L.A. district division, Los Angeles division, for many years. And he knew Dale Griffis as well. And everybody I talked to, they're all saying, oh, yeah, Dale Griffis is very impressed with his work. And raving endorses of everybody I've met in the past 2 weeks who knows Dale Griffis. So I just wanted to point that out before we get back. But there were some things that we wanted to cover that we didn't cover in our last interview that we'd like to do today. So, Dr. Griffis, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Thank you.
I hope I can give you some additional facts that might right the ship a little bit.
Well, so far, so good. You know, we need to get the record straight here. So I know that one thing that we wanted to clarify a little further was about your doctorate.
Sure. Nothing's ever mentioned the fact that I graduated from Technical College with an associate degree in police science. Then I graduated cum laude with a degree in psychology from Heidelberg College, which is about a 150-year-old institution. And
now, was it a brand new institution when you started there?
Yeah, 200 years ago, yeah, pretty close.
You know me, I can't help it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. What is funny is when I started elementary school, Ed, I went to College Hill Elementary School, and now it is part of Heidelberg College. So I guess I've been around the college. I lived a block and a half growing up from that place. So I've known it. Had the opportunity to do some studying under Dr. Leon Wise and several other great professors, and it was very interesting. And then I got where I needed a couple surgeries on my knee, and this distance learning was just coming into effect, and I read about this school in California, which was approved by the state of California to grant degrees called Columbia Pacific. And I got my master's degree. And I had an ISP that I had to do that was quite extensive. But I wrote a term paper of 80, I think it's right around 89 or 91 pages, which dealt with visual graphics in understanding complicated cases for small agencies. And that took me about a year to get through that. In companion with that, at the same time, I had graduated from 3 police schools on intelligence documentation. Then I had to have another surgery, a second surgery, which I hadn't planned on, and I continued on. And I studied under Dr. Braceland to get my PhD, and I did an ISP on cults and their effects on the objectives of law enforcement. And that you have to, anybody that's gone through that, majority of people have to write a dissertation. Well, my dissertation was about 285 pages long, of which I did a study of over 500, close to 500 people who had been in cults. And I had some people help me get names of these people, and I wrote them. I even talked with them. And then what was brought out in the trial by the defense was my one section on the legality of behavior modification and so forth, and religion, and that was proctored by agents of the FBI in Washington, D.C. I asked for approval because to have them review what I did so that I was legally correct and from the law enforcement standpoint. And that took me pretty close to another, right around 2 years to get that done. So when they talk about a mail order degree, either the mail was awful darn slow or something was wrong, but it took me from 81 to 84 to get through the project. A total of, over the college, my college years was approximately 13 years to get through school from the associate degree, because it took me more than my share of time at Heidelberg because of having to work at the same time. And also one of the helps, Ed, is a program that a lot of people took advantage at the time. It was called the LEAP program by the fine Texas president, the law enforcement educational program. You went to college and you stayed on the department 3 years after they picked up the tab for your college. So, yes, did I take advantage of that? Yes, I did. At the same time I was working at the police department, I've got approximately 80 courses, seminars on that I had taken in the 26 years I was on the department. So I was pretty much a lot of schooling and writing, and my dissertation I had to defend, and I defended it. And later on found out after the trial in West Memphis that the Supreme Court of California, in a lawsuit that was filed out there by former people attending Columbia Pacific, at the time I went through the school, it was approved by the state to grant degrees. One of the questions that was asked by me, to me by the defense counsel, is it true that Columbia Pacific is not state accredited? States do not accredit colleges, never have, probably never will, but they will give them the ability to grant degrees. I tried to explain to this attorney several times. The judge and the jury caught it, but he was bound and determined. In fact, he asked the same question, I think, for about 3.5 hours straight. I realized by his asking that, somebody's got a weak case, you go for the expert and try and shoot him out of the saddle. But I stuck to my guns, and in that court case, I was granted the ability to speak as expert after the judge asked me how many cases I worked in occult crimes, and I said around 1,200.
But back to your credentials and your education. You also taught a college-level course in criminal justice.
I taught at Terra Technical College. I guest lectured at probably about 20 different colleges, and I ended up speaking and teaching at The Ohio State University in criminal justice.
And you wrote a book?
My dissertation is 285 pages, something like that. That's one. And then I co-authored a book with Ted Swartz called Secret Weapons on behavior modification and so forth.
And you worked as an investigator for the DA's office?
I worked 3 years at the prosecutor's office part-time. I had some kids getting ready to go to college and had to help out with some college funds, so I worked there as a Secret Service officer on the part-time, and my job basically was putting together cases for trial and preparing witnesses to speak.
The reason why we want to go over that again is because I guess shortly after the conviction of these men in West Memphis-Three, West Memphis, Arkansas, like a reality TV kind of movie came out on HBO called Paradise Lost, The Murder at Robin Hood Hills. And a lot of people describe it as a documentary. But it was really more of a reality TV kind of a new age kind of thing, you know? Not really a documentary that you would call in the classic sense. And a lot of people that are kind of naive and gullible, they watch this reality TV movie, and they saw a very small edited portion of your testimony, mostly of the defense attorney kind of haranguing you about your education. And so many people came away from that with that being the only kind of information they ever had about your career and about your education and your 23-year career as retiring as a police captain and all this work that you've done. They've come away with the wrong impression. So we're just trying to clarify that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I never watched the show. I was told ahead of time that it was a slam dunk on me. You know, I didn't plead guilty to the murders. These people did. Okay? I started in this whole study in 1967 studying cults, and the first occult case was in 1976. And besides being a policeman, and I got to correct you, it was not 23 years, it was 26 years as a policeman. I started it after a kid committed suicide offering his body up to Satan, and nobody in this whole area of Ohio had any idea what the heck was going on. And while I might have been a policeman, I was also a dad. Mm. And I don't like unturned stones. They can come to bite you. And I just wanted to find out what it was. I worked a week with the San Francisco Police Department. I worked a week with the LA Police Department, just so that I knew what was going on in California and so forth. These things you don't hear about in Paradise Lost. They had a job to do. They tried awful darn hard to do it. And what was interesting, all I testified about, in a crime, Ed, there are three things: opportunity, ability, and desire. I only testified to the desire part. And the other two, I don't think you heard anything about at all, did you?
Well, a little bit, and people that have investigated the case have heard a little bit. Like, for instance, that the three men who pled guilty and confessed and implicated themselves at various times, failed polygraph tests, they don't have an alibi for where they were that night. Yeah, so opportunity.
And I think there's been some signed confessions.
Oh yeah, several.
Yeah, and the thing about it, the guy that testified he was asked a true-false question, and this professor from Berkeley took him a couple hours to answer a true-false question. I don't know how the heck you do that.
What was that? The false confession expert?
BS the troops.
Was that the false confession expert you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my comment, when I testified as an expert, finally got through. It only lasted 20 minutes. I don't think you saw any of that on Paradise Lost.
There's a bit of it. There's a bit of it. Enough that, the first documentary really wasn't that bad. Many people come away agreeing that the three men that confessed and pled guilty are guilty. There's just like a little question left out. But I think it's more like once the success of that film and people came out and started these support groups and defense awareness funds, where the money, where thousands and thousands and thousands were being raised each week. And where that money was going, nobody really knows. We uncovered some very interesting things about some of the originating founders of these defense groups that we've discussed before in my series of shows on this topic. But it really was 50-50 came away from that first broadcast. But now, let me ask you a question. How did you become involved in West Memphis? Like, weren't they having animal mutilations and evidence of sacrifices before you ever testified and they called you in?
About 18 months prior to that, I had given a talk in Little Rock, Arkansas, and some of the officers from that area of Arkansas were present. And approximately a year in advance of that, then, one of those officers sent me information about the cult of the dead cow and the fact that they were having animal mutilations and that they were having some stuff, and that Echols' name came up at that time.
Really?
And I had sent them a list of things for them to do in the school to do and so forth like that. One of the things I recommended is that they talk with the English teacher and the music teacher to see what lyrics are being written and what's being written in the papers people have to produce, plus take a look at the art department and see if there's what's showing up in the art department, so that you can help steer these kids around so that there's no problems. I don't enjoy putting people in prison. If you can help them, that's fine. I'm glad to do that.
Yeah, especially if we can avoid 3 murders, 3 little
Sure.
8-year-old Boy Scouts. So before these murders ever took place, you were there on the scene because of these animal sacrifices.
I was not on the scene. I was
at a conference.
I was contacted, and I had information sent to me to review.
Gotcha. Now, during the crime and the investigation, we found out that one of the main characters, Damien-Echols, had animal skulls in his bedroom. He had them hanging from a clothesline in his backyard to treat them, whatever he was doing with them, to bleach them. His family was aware of this. His mother was aware. His father was aware. So we know that. That's in police reports. That's documented. But now, do we know after this trial, did this activity, and Echols is in prison, and these characters are in prison, do we know if that kind of activity continued in that town?
Ceased immediately.
So it all stopped.
The other thing, too, that I think, what is Damien-Echols' name?
True, it's not Damien, yeah.
It's not Damien.
Yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
He's unfortunately, he's a kid that's from I'm looking from a helpful aspect. He's a kid that somehow fell through the cracks, and this is the result of it. And I know this, that having talked with the police officer after the murders took place, I asked him how much of those my suggestions did they take. And he says, "Well, I couldn't get any help at all."
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that.
People, one of the interesting things about it is this: when you have a serious situation like that, people want it to happen always down the road. They don't want it in their own backyard. Yeah. It's hard for people to deal with this type of activity. Today, I still feel sorry for the 3 little 8-year-old boys that died. I feel sorry also for one of the perpetrators. I think he got hogwashed into the thing. The other 2 seem to be in concert with one another. So.
Mm. Well, you mean Miskelly, who's confessed all these numerous times? You think he's the one that got kind of...
I can't remember.
Okay.
I hate to tell you, it's been a few years, but I just knew one of them was not as much a conspirator as the rest of them.
It seems that the only one that's had any remorse has been Miskelly, the one who confessed. He was even confessing to friends before he was ever questioned by the police. He was having a breakdown about his shoes, and he didn't want to see his shoes anymore and take them out of his sight. He was just heartbroken. And then, didn't
Damien-Echols also talk to a girl or a girlfriend and confess to her?
In front of the softball girls. He confessed in front of the softball girls who were witnesses to him. He was making statements. Also, too, he took a polygraph test, and he failed that. And he even said, "This is what. Tell you what, bring my mother here, and I'll tell you guys everything you want to know." And then the mother came, and he locked up. So we discussed a lot of this in our much longer interview. Now, I think another thing you wanted to discuss too was how the children were lured in. You believe that they were lured in?
Well, I think they were. Everybody wants to belong to something good.
Right.
Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all kinds of stuff. And I think they were lured in with the idea they're going to get involved in something good, And that's what I had been told. That part dealt with the ability part more than the desire. So that's all I knew, was that they had been lured in because of they were going to be involved in something good.
That's the three killers were lured into this cult, you're trying to say?
No.
The little boys.
Three victims.
Yeah, there was some. I remember reading some stuff about how one of the families mentioned how they saw someone come and take a picture of one of their kids on the front lawn, and they felt that they were being staked out and groomed before the murders.
Yes.
Yeah.
That part I'm not sure of.
Yeah.
But the only thing again, it's sad. We have three young youths that will never see what it's like to be 9 years old.
Heartbreaking. And most of these little boys, they'd be like 30 years old right by now.
Yeah.
They'd be in their 30s. These would be men with kids of their own. So
that's right.
It is. It's tragic. And then you see this guy Echols. He comes out of prison now, and who's he go running off with? To meet with people like Johnny Depp and Ed Rollins, all people with all kinds of shady things in their life, and even going to meet with members of the Process Church of the Final Judgment, Genesis P. Orridge. There's photographs of Echols with him, her. People who may not realize it, but P. Orridge is I believe started out as a man and then is transitioning into a woman, transgender kind of a character.
Well, I tell you what, you talk with Maury and Terry, and he can explain the Process Church to you.
Oh yeah, no, we discuss it. Yeah, I'm in a group with Maury Terry. He reveals information to us all the time. Fascinating stuff. Trying to get him to come on the show. You promised me you're going to talk to him for me, right?
What? What's that?
I'm trying to get him to come on my show, and remember you said you'd talk to him for me?
I'll be glad to. Yes, I will.
You didn't forget already, did you? Okay.
But what was interesting is I hope that those kids that were sitting in the trial box, that were followers, have turned their life into a more profitable situation.
Well, unfortunately, we know where some of them have gone. A couple of them, 3 of them, as a matter of fact, turned up on MTV. That they were involved in a polygamous relationship, polyamorous, I think it's called, where the 3 of them, 2 men and a woman, live together as a multicultural family, marriage or whatever you want to call it. So we've seen where a couple of these people have wound up, and none of it very good. With Damien-Echols' girlfriend, Dominique Tier, Child Protective Services had to go to the house there because they were hoarding animals and they were trying to take away the kids. There was other shootings and stabbings and family members from this bunch. Just a tragedy all over this whole group, over and over. People being arrested, stabbings, drunken driving arrests, all kinds of stuff. So I haven't seen too much good come out of this. Very few.
In other words, you're telling me they're not stalwarts of society.
Unfortunately, no. I don't think anybody in that town really was, And for people to think this was Mayberry, this was the Bible Belt, and they saw a couple of kids wearing black shirts and pointed them out and said, well, let's have a witch hunt. Obviously that's not the case, that there was suspicions about Echols before these murders, the animal mutilations before the murders, animal heads found in his home, and then animal mutilation stopped after the conviction. So I think...
I would also tell you the murder stopped.
The murder stopped as well. That's true. There was never another murder. And there was never another confession by Miskelly. Miskelly could have easily said, hey, it was the Bojangles man. Me and Bojangles did it, the black guy from the Bojangles chicken place.
Yeah.
Could have easily said that. Never happened.
One of the other things when this case is all over with, in the testimony and so forth, and I got on the plane heading back, I looked at what I'd done and what I did do and didn't do, and I was really kind of kicking myself in the backside a little bit because I had no knowledge these people did not follow the instructions I had given them. And as a result, 3 kids died. And I felt very bad for the parents. I felt bad for the victims. It wasn't exactly my job to follow through with it, but on the other hand, I sure wish that people had listened. That's all.
And what if you ever had the slightest fear or indication in your heart that perhaps the 3 men who confessed and pled guilty were not guilty? What do you think you would do then? Would you try and come out and investigate and take a look again and try and help out?
Yeah, I never, ever in 26 years ever wanted to put somebody in jail that didn't belong there. You know?
Amen.
And I always kind of the precept, you know, my dad was a policeman, and his comment to me years ago when I first started was, prove that the perpetrator was not innocent. That's something to think about. Prove the perpetrator is not innocent. In other words, listen to their side, listen to what's going on, you know, and then weigh the facts and stack them up. I don't believe in going into a case where, you know, you got a premeditated focal view. Throw out the cards and bring them in and see how they stack up. We got guys in that 3 people that confessed. I think 2 of them signed confessions, didn't they?
Confessions was signed confessions was only 1. Miss Scully signed a confession after being interrogated. It was a videotape confession, as a matter of fact. Then he confessed.
I think the other one, besides Echols, also didn't he give a statement? Or?
No, he confessed to a cellmate in jail.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I knew somehow there was some sort of a admission against his own interest.
They've all implicated themselves. There's no doubt about that.
Yes. Yes.
And the defense raised so much money. These supporters. There's one report that the guy who wrote the movie The Hobbit has donated over $11 million for the defense fund. I think his name is Rollins, J.P. Rollins. So the amount of money that they had to throw against this and hire really the incredible legal team and offer rewards for witnesses. There was a big billboard in town saying, if you have any information, come forward, you know, $signs, you know, come on in. We'll write down anything you say. You know, point the finger anywhere and we'll pay you. So it's amazing what the other side in this case has, and the amount of power and money and celebrity that has come in to support these killers.
Well, from what I understand, in conclusion, they've all signed a statement they were guilty. Is that correct?
No, they've all pled guilty, yeah.
Also, since they went to court, went to prison, there's never been another incident of similar taste either, has there?
Yeah, that's true.
And consequently, those people that assist them on a regular basis, you've kind of brought up the fact that some of their backgrounds are a tad shady, are they?
Yeah, yeah.
So all I can say is I tried to be an honest individual and give an honest opinion.
And I'd also like to say, too, that other objective journalists that I've discussed this case with, like Pat Brown and criminal profiler Pat Brown, Diane Diamond, other people from HLN and Court TV, whenever I bring up this case, it's always the exact same reaction. Oh, God. Because they know that when you talk about this case, the fans of these killers are the most obnoxious, vile online harassers and stalkers. I told you some stories off the air with my own life, and it's an organized group of trolls, internet trolls, that will make your life miserable. So anybody who tries to discuss this fairly will come under attack by this bunch. So I really do thank you, Dale, for coming back into the public eye. I know you said last time you said it would be your last interview, and I joked around.
This is my last interview. That's correct.
Okay, because last time you said that, and I said I'll call you tomorrow, and I got you tomorrow. So who knows? But
I am enjoying retired life. I watching my grandkids grow up and do a little trout fishing, and other than that, I hope to. I collect pens as a hobby and try and get my mind off of all the other stuff. I've been involved in criminal justice for close to 50 years, and now it's time to back away.
Well, Dr. Griffis, thank you for your service. Okay, thank you very much, and it's been an honor to meet you and talk to you and become friends with you. I second everything everyone said to me about you. You know, all these people I've been talking to the past couple of weeks. Everyone has great words to say about you, and I agree. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you very kindly, and I just try to do what's right. And sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in, and I did.
Amen. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too. Bye-bye. Good night.
Bye.
Okay, there we had Dr. Dale Griffis, and this was just like a little preview. What do you call it? Epilogue at the end to add on to our last interview that we did, which is available in our members section. It's available up on YouTube for I think it's $1.99, something like that. It's available in the archive section on OppermanReport.com. We did about a 70 or 80 minute interview in detail, covering a lot more than this little free preview that we're giving you here. We just wanted to clarify a couple of things that weren't clarified in the first interview. So you can find that at OppermanReport.com. You can join and become a member and get that, hold of that right away. Or you can go to YouTube and you can pick it up on there. Or you can go to the OppermanReport.com archive section and you can pick up that interview over there, the longer interview that we did with Dr. Dale Griffis. And like I said, I don't want to puff him up too much when he's on the air with me, but just by absolute coincidence, this week I just happened to be talking to all these other individuals, and everyone who heard his name all had the same thing to say. You know, he's an honorable man, a respectable man, a dignified man, very accomplished, educated, and 26 years, I kept saying 23 years, but 26 years in law enforcement without a complaint or a discipline or anything like that. So thank you very much, Dr. Dale Griffis, and everyone who's listening to the show, we'll see you next week with more new content. Okay.